Hi everyone, welcome to Glam Dunk. My name is Becca, and on Glam Dunk, I tell you about the biggest, most memorable moments that sports history has to offer while I do my makeup. Thank you so much for being here and for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you are curious about what makeup products I am using, I will have them all linked in the description box below. This is the 4th episode of Glam Dunk. If you have not seen episode 1 on the 2001 World Series, episode 2 on the catch, or episode 3 on Wilt Chamberlain's 100-point game, I will have them all linked in the description box below. Today we are going to be talking about the 1989 World Series. The 1989 World Series, also known as the Battle of the Bay and the Bay Bridge Series, was played between the American League champion Oakland Athletics and the National League champion San Francisco Giants. Now you may be asking yourself, what is so special about this World Series? Was it one of the team's first World Series championships in 106 years like the Cubs? Was it like the 2004 Red Sox? No. This World Series was interrupted by an earthquake, and not just any earthquake, a 6.9 earthquake, the Loma Prieta earthquake. The Oakland A's and San Francisco Giants are the Bay Area's two MLB teams, so the fact that they were playing each other in a World Series was a very big deal, especially here in the Bay. It'd be like if the Angels and Dodgers were playing each other in the World Series, or the Yankees and the Cubs. This was the Giants' first World Series appearance since 1962, while the A's were playing in their second straight World Series. The San Francisco Giants won the NL West division by 3 games over the San Diego Padres, and then defeated the Chicago Cubs 4-1 in the NLCS. The Oakland A's won the AL West division by 7 games over the Kansas City Royals. Yes, the Kansas City Royals were still in the AL West back then, and then defeated the Toronto Blue Jays 4-1 in the ALCS. So Game 1 took place at the Oakland Coliseum. First pitch was 5:31 p.m. Pacific time. Prior to Game 1, a tribute to the late MLB commissioner Bart Giamatti was held. Yes, the father of actor Paul Giamatti. The pitching matchup was A's ace Dave Stewart versus Scott Garrels. The A's ended up winning Game 1 by a score of 5-0, a shutout. Game 2 again took place at the Oakland Coliseum. Little League World Series MVP and future NHL star Chris Drury threw out the ceremonial first pitch. Game 2's starting pitchers were Mike Moore for the A's and Rick Russell for the Giants. Again, the A's won by a score of 5-1 and took a 2-0 series lead on the Giants. Now, Game 3 is when the A's and Giants worlds were shaken upside down, kind of literally. Game 3 was scheduled to take place across the bay at Candlestick Park, the same stadium we talked about a couple episodes ago where the catch took place. Before AT&T Park was built, or what is it now? Oracle Park or Pac Bell, whatever it is now. The Giants and 49ers shared Candlestick Park. Game 3 was scheduled to start at 5:35 p.m., yet at 5:04 p.m., an earthquake shook the stadium and the Bay Area, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake known to us now as the Loma Prieta earthquake. Thousands of people were already in the stadium when the earthquake hit. It was the first major earthquake in the United States to be broadcast on live television. Actually, though, experts credit the timing of the series as a lucky break that prevented a massive loss of life in the region. Number 1, many people left work early or stayed at work late for viewing parties. And number 2, there's less traffic, which was incredibly important considering the earthquake resulted in the upper deck of the Bay Bridge collapsing onto the lower deck, as well as the Cypress Freeway structure collapsing in Oakland. Not so fun fact, my grandpa and grandma went to the city that day, San Francisco, and crossed the Bay Bridge where it fell. My grandpa wanted to get home though to watch the game and cheer on the A's. So they missed it, thank God, but they drove on it the same day. It collapsed only a couple hours earlier before. I mean, this was 5:04 p.m. on a Tuesday. If you're from here or anywhere that has traffic, for that matter, I'm sure you can imagine that the bridge connecting Oakland to San Francisco is not very fun on a weekday at 5 p.m. in normal circumstances. At the time the earthquake hit, the ABC crew was in the booth as Tim McCarver was presenting a highlight package. The earthquake hit while the video was playing and temporarily knocked the feed out. And just before it was knocked out, you could hear Al Michaels saying, "I'll tell you what, we're having an earth." And then it cut out, the feed cut out before he could even finish. I will link a video of that, by the way. It's very eerie, to be honest. They're showing a highlight package and you see, watching like Canseco, and then it just cuts out and you hear McCarver saying that they're having an earthquake. It's very apocalyptic, honestly. A Goodyear blimp that was meant to be covering the game was used to coordinate emergency efforts and show footage of structural damages and fires throughout the city of San Francisco. Again, the earthquake was a 6.9 magnitude. If you are not from somewhere that has earthquakes, that is bad. I think the worst California has ever had is like a 7.3. But Loma Prieta was a 6.9 and it lasted 17 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot until your world around you is violently shaking. It caused 63 deaths, 3,757 injuries, and more than $6 billion worth of damage. It was no joke. If you have not seen the ESPN 30 for 30 on the 1989 World Series, I highly recommend that you watch it. I think it's called The Day the Series Stopped. It's the best account of what happened that day from a baseball standpoint. I'll link like a 10-minute clip from it that ESPN has on YouTube. It has interviews with like Tony La Russa and Dave Stewart, Dennis Eckersley, Walt Weiss, Will Clark. It's really good. So normally when it comes to eyeshadows, I'm pretty boring. I like pinks and browns and maybe orange if I'm feeling adventurous. But I wanted to go a little out of my comfort zone. It's almost Halloween, you know, thought I could do something a little more colorful. I don't really have any colorful palettes, honestly, so I'm borrowing my mom's ABH Norvina Volume 3 Pro Pigment palette. It's so pretty. It intimidates me, but it's so pretty. So I'm gonna shock myself and you and try to do something a little more colorful and a little more exciting. So don't be scared. I'm gonna be scared. I don't know if it's gonna come out good or not. Just bear with me. I'm trying to branch out. So when the earthquake hit, most of the A's and Giants players and staff were in their respective clubhouses getting ready for the game. A's manager Tony La Russa said he thought that the earthquake was just the fans stomping above on the dugout. A's pitcher Dennis Eckersley said it felt like a train was ramming through the stadium. MLB Commissioner Fay Vincent said it felt like military bombers were attacking the stadium. A's shortstop Walt Weiss said it felt as if he had stepped in a huge hole in the middle of the outfield. And Giants first baseman Will Clark said he could literally see a physical wave moving through the field. All of the players that were inside of their clubhouses ran out on the field to either see what had happened or they realized it was an earthquake and thought it was safer out on the field. You can see some of the players pulling their family members from the stands onto the field because they were so concerned. The electricity had been knocked out, so Giants third baseman Matt Williams said the players figured out how bad it truly was once they heard the police scanners from the police cars on the field, because there was no electricity, so the police had to get on their loudspeakers and tell all the fans to evacuate. The game was not going to happen, obviously, but again, because of no electricity, they couldn't have like the PA announcer announce it. So Williams overheard the scanner saying the Bay Bridge was down, and that's when everyone on the field began to realize how bad it really was. Because from inside the stadium, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. But again, the stadium was one of the safest places you could be during that earthquake, believe it or not. When I think of the old, brittle, broken down candlestick I attended in my youth, that's hard for me to believe, because I think it would have collapsed had it been that old back then. But truly, not many people realized how bad it was until they evacuated and began to realize the destruction that this quake had caused to the cities they lived in. Once they got outside, they saw the fires, and people told them that the Bay Bridge, had collapsed, and many were worried about potential aftershocks as well. Now, the upper deck was the worst place you could be in the stadium because it saw the most damage. Giants outfielder Brett Butler actually said his brother-in-law was sitting in the upper deck and had went to get a hot dog when the earthquake struck. When he came back to his seat, there was a huge boulder in his seat that would have crushed him if he had been there at the time. A's pitcher Dave Stewart said it took the A's team 6 hours to get back to Oakland from San Francisco. Not long after returning to Oakland, Jose Canseco was spotted with his wife Esther. He was still in full uniform, filling up their car with gas. I remember in the 30 for 30 A's player Mike Gallego. Oh, there's cat hair all over my brushes. I remember in the 30 for 30 A's player Mike Gallego, and he was later their third base coach. He was talking about how he and his wife were at the game and they couldn't call their babysitter because the phone lines were down, and they had their twin boys at home with a babysitter, and they were so frantic and worried. And like Stu said, it took them 6 hours to get back to Oakland, which should normally take them like 15-20 minutes tops, and they were so worried about their kids because they just had no idea. Their house could be up in flames, their house could be absolutely destructed, and they had no idea if their kids were okay. They finally got home, walked in the door, and the boys were just chilling, playing with their babysitter, totally fine. No biggie. But that's the thing. If your loved ones weren't at the game with you, you had no idea if they were okay, because so much power, electricity, phone lines, power and electricity are the same thing, but power, phone lines, they were all knocked out. People in the area were told to prepare to be without services for the next 3 days at least. So the next day, A's pitcher Dave Stewart took coffee and donuts to first responders and offered his help. He created care packages with food, blankets, clothing for those in the community who were suffering from this tragedy. Now, as you may know, in baseball, taking a long break in the middle of a very important series or in between a series is not the best idea. It can be good for rest, but it can also make you become rusty. So A's manager Tony La Russa decided to fly the team to Arizona to get some workouts in because there was a gap of 10 days in between the day Game 3 was supposed to happen versus the day that it actually happened. He believes that this affected the team very positively because they got their focus back to baseball and off of grief. Game 3 was initially postponed for 5 days, but another 5 days were added, making this the longest delay in World Series history. San Francisco Mayor Art Agnos wanted to wait a month before resuming, but MLB Commissioner Fay Vincent told him that he might have to move it elsewhere if it was going to be that long. So Vincent put other stadiums on standby, including Wrigley Field, Comiskey Park, the Kingdome in Seattle, the Astrodome in Houston, Yankee Stadium, and Shea Stadium. Moving the game to Oakland wouldn't have really made a difference, so that wasn't even considered. Random fact, Stevie Wonder was set to play the national anthem on his harmonica before Game 3, but he pulled out after the earthquake, so that sucks. So Game 3 was finally played on October 27th, 10 days after the Loma Prieta earthquake struck. It did take place at Candlestick Park in the end. During the delay, Candlestick Park was inspected and found to only have had minor damage, so this was quickly repaired and the stadium was deemed safe for use. At the start of Game 3, emergency responders who had aided during the earthquake were honored and threw out the ceremonial first pitch. The starters were the Game 1 starters, Stewart and Geralt. The 10-day delay from the earthquake allowed both of them to start again. First pitch was 5:28 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The A's ended up winning that game by a score of 13-7 and went up 3-0 on the series. I feel like these colors really bring out, I have two different colored eyes. I have heterochromia, which means two different colored eyes, like Max Scherzer, fun fact. So I feel like these greens and blues really make my eyes pop. This one's blue and this one's hazel. Game 4 took place the next day at Candlestick, with the A's looking to sweep since they were up on the series 3-0. The game started at 5:28 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. At the time, October 28th was the latest end date for a World Series ever. And spoiler alert, the A's won. They swept the Giants 4-0. They won Game 4 by a score of 9-6. This was also the final World Series game played at Candlestick Park. This was also the first time that a World Series ended in the last month of October until the 2001 World Series, when the 9/11 attacks delayed the NFL and MLB games for a week and caused the World Series to end in November, which you probably remember from my first episode of Glam Dunk. Still to this day, us A's fans are very proud of sweeping our rivals across the bay in the World Series, but the earthquake is what is most remembered about the 1989 World Series. It was one of the worst we have ever had here. I wasn't alive yet for 6 more years, but obviously my parents were, my grandparents were, and it was a big deal. We are approaching the 32nd anniversary of the Loma Prieta earthquake next month, and it's still very talked about because of the fact that it was so big and it happened during the World Series between the region's 2 teams. It was an incredibly tragic day, but the fact that so many people were either home or at the stadium to watch the game helped save so many lives, and it brought rivals together because no one cared about the Battle of the Bay anymore for a little while. It was just the Bay as one. Oakland and San Francisco were both suffering, and it became about loved ones, not which team you were rooting for. Both A's and Giants players were on the field together trying to figure out what had happened. Players were able to give back to their communities and help with the aftermath efforts. Although some may have thought that they shouldn't have gotten back to baseball so soon after tragedy struck, again, it was kind of like 9/11. Number one, baseball is a business, and this was no ordinary series. It was the World Series, and it was a World Series between 2 big rivals, no less. Plus, I think Bay Area residents needed this. They needed baseball to distract from grief and the stress that Loma Prieta had caused. So I want to know where you or where your parents were during the 1989 World Series and Loma Prieta earthquake. Let me know if you were there at Candlestick, if you were at home watching the game, if you crossed the Bay Bridge earlier like my grandparents did. Let me know where you were when it happened. I'm very curious to hear your stories. Like I said before, all the makeup I used will be linked below if you are curious about anything that I used. Please subscribe and follow me on social media. It would help me out a lot. Other than that, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to comment where you were, where your parents were. I'm very curious to know. I will see you in my next one. Bye. Does this concealer smell like mint? Why does this concealer smell minty? It's taking everything in me not to use the browns. Stick to the greens and the blues. Be adventurous. I didn't mean to do A's colors. It's kind of just happening, which is fine. I can't use oranges in this one. I am an A's fan. I'm trying not to be biased or anything. It did take place at Candlestick Park. Candlestick. Feels very 90s Nickelodeon or something. I don't know. Looks like slime. Do you like my earrings? They say my name.